Hello, I'm back again. Henry, BLU Review, back with more of the 13 Days of Halloween. Um, I'm going to actually start watching one of them right now, even as we speak. So I'm not sure if you can hear the music or not, but it might be familiar to some of you. I'm going to see if I can turn it up a little bit. Anyway, hopefully this won't get my video yanked, but I hope you can hear that nice soothing tones there of Resort Alani. And that'll be the first movie we talk about today, Cannibal Holocaust. Just came on screen. My cat, Kal-El, aka Little Henry, is back there grooming himself. He had to photobomb me. I'm not sure what's up with that, but he's an attention whore for sure. Now the music's stirring up. I'm going to turn it down a good bit and get into it. So, what's the theme or themes today? So today the themes are first two are going to be basically, I call it spaghetti gross outs because they're two very extreme Italian films from that irresponsible era, as this DVD calls it. Um, Cannibal Holocaust is one that I watch every Halloween because, like Tim Lucas said, it's one of the most terrifying movies he's ever seen. So I would say for horror, it definitely fits, um, and it's emblematic. It's kind of the text of the Italian cannibal subgenre. I'm trying to bring the music down a little. I apologize, but it still sounds nice in the background, I hope. So I first encountered Cannibal Holocaust myself through a friend of mine called Mark Baranowski, who some of you may know or may not know as a musician and movie maker. Um, about 1998, he let me borrow kind of a rough dupe of it, and I was a bit staggered. I didn't expect that I would actually like it. I thought it would be, it's an endurance test. I'm going to get through this somehow. Might be interesting. And it was all of those things, but it had a lot more depth to it, a lot more, I don't know, a lot more to say. It was dramatically well done. It was extremely well made from what I could tell, at least as far as the composition and the shots. I couldn't really tell how well the photography actually was of the print I had. So let's fast forward a little further that year, and I'm at this Heroes convention here in Charlotte, a giant comic book convention we have every year here in town. And I was buying videotapes there every year back then, and guy had a dupe of the laser disc of Cannibal Holocaust that had recently come out. I can't remember who put it out. It may have been called Epics, who later, I don't know, they were going to do a DVD, but Grindhouse ended up doing it. We'll get to that in a second. But I want to say it's called Epics. It was a VHS dupe of their laser disc. It was really nice looking. I mean, and I reevaluated the movie, and I thought I was right the first time. Now, some of the scenes of animal cruelty that just about did me in, being able to see them more graphically, especially the infamous turtle scene. And yeah, that was a bit much. But I gotta say, as a dramatic genre film, and kind of cleverly made, being the first real found footage film that we know of, it was pretty great. Um, I watched it the first night of the convention. The second night, I got into an extended debate with a couple of friends about the morality of me, buying this film and supporting this kind of cruelty against animals when I was claiming to be an animal rights activist or advocate anyway. And I was, and I am. The ironic thing is, I had just become 1998. So I suppose I'd just become a vegetarian, completely vegetarian, not vegan, but no dead animals. Whereas I was not going to eat any dead animals anymore. I may partake of some of their byproducts like cheese, etc., yogurt, ice cream, but those are ones I've been weaning on and off for the last 20 odd years since this. Um, but yeah, it's really been 22 years, over 22 years since I've had any meat whatsoever. So that was a big decision for me. And Actually, you know what? I wanna correct myself here. I had just become like a mostly vegetarian. I know there's little breakdowns and prefixes for what describes what, and you guys could probably clue me in on that in the comments down here. But um, I was I had cut out everything but fish, so I was not eating any mammals or birds. And I had my last chicken and meal, I believe, in May 1998, and that was the first I'd had in a year or two. Every time I ate it, I got sick. You're probably wondering what any of this has to do with Cannibal Holocaust. Well, it kind of does have a lot to do with Cannibal Holocaust because of the reactions this film brings out in people. You know, it's a very controversial film. It's still controversial. It's still a benchmark for extreme cinema, and I think it always will be. So for that alone, it has mad respect from me. And no matter what you think of the content, quality wise or morally speaking, personally, as an artist and appreciator of art, I tend to check my personal morality at the door. I don't assume that characters are going to act the way I would act or the way I would like the world to be or ideals. I think that's all it's not realistic. It makes no sense because art is a mirror to society, and art is a catharsis for society, and that's been that way ever since the days of the shamans in ancient cultures. Uh, Speaking of which, there are some of those shamans in this Stone Age culture right here on the screen right now in Cannibal Holocaust. But I'm getting to that. So anyway, the second day of this comic book convention in 1998, I had this debate with some friends, and a then good friend said to me, you know, how can you really defend this? And I said, well, it's art. You know, I mean, I think it's one thing they kill the animals for a work of art, like they used to for ritual sacrifices and performance art, um, rather than just wantonly slaughtering them. Um, and he said, well, one thing is, you know, you need meat to live, and so if you kill them for meat, then that's okay. Um, but if you kill them for art, then it's wrong. So I think, yeah, in principle, killing them for art is wrong. Killing them at all is wrong. I will say the ones that were killed in this movie, from everything I've read, were all eaten by either the tribes that were there filming this. This was filmed in the Amazon, or by some of the crew members after they'd been cooked. I'm not sure if the natives cooked or just consumed them, but that turtle was someone's dinner, even though the actors kind of eating it were had unrehearsed, unscripted, visceral reactions, which they were captured, and it was supposed to be captured as a found footage document. So that added to the authenticity of it. At the beginning of this movie, it says something about, in the interest of authenticity, some sequences have been retained in their entirety. So this is an ambiguous idea here, way of saying that, you know, some of this really is real. Now you tell us what's real and what isn't real. So the animal deaths were a blurring of the line that assisted in that pursuit. By the way, today I'm watching a version on the Blu-ray called the animal cruelty free version, which I've watched one other time. All the other times I've watched the film, I have watched it with the animal cruelty. Um, the last time I did was when I got this Blu-ray several months back, and yeah, it was pretty rough. I mean, there have been times I've watched it and I've been like, yeah, okay, or it hasn't phased me as much, and then other times where it's just grotesque, and other times where it's like, wow, this is just beyond the pale, and it is beyond the pale. Um, so what the fuck is this movie about, really? Cannibals, animals killed on screen, found footage. What does it have a plot? Well, yeah, I mean, basically, this kind of unlikely hero, Professor Harold Monroe, played by the late great Robert Kerman, who also doubled in porn as Arbola and other pseudonyms. Um, Good guy. He passed away just a couple of years ago. Um, Mr. Kerman, though, acted in some of the European genre films, including two or three of the cannibal movies. This is his most famous because in this one he really plays a character that is a real stretch for him and shows that he's a good actor beyond just porn and just action. And that is as this professor of anthropology who goes to the Amazon with the help of some guides, managed to liberate from this cannibal tribe these cans of film that were left behind by this crew that disappeared in the Amazon sometime earlier. So they can't find the crew, though they suspect some of the skulls and such are theirs, and they've been completely decayed. Um, and where it's kind of hinted that they've been devoured, but we really don't know what happened to them. So once we start from that vantage point, then we go backwards, and Monroe brings the footage to civilization and this very cynical news corporation in a skyscraper, kind of reminiscent of the Death Hour on Network a few years earlier. They decide this is great, this is sensational. The more we rape their senses, the better it is. And it's an extension of Network's idea of articulating those things. So I put it kind of in that lineage too of media madness kind of films, like A Face in the Crowd, um, Network, obviously, Videodrome, all the way down to like Nightcrawler with Jake Gyllenhaal, where they have to get the shot no matter what. Ace in the Hole with Kirk Douglas is another good early example. But so this movie, the parts where Harold is in the jungle, the real story is shot immaculately, beautiful, well above average even for some of the better Italian filmmakers who got a bad rap back then because of their slackness or the low budget or whatever. But essentially, um, when you get to the found footage, though, you're talking about stuff that's shot more on 16 millimeter deliberately in order to look like it's real, and all handheld. And handheld was no anomaly in Italian genre cinema. I mean, they saved a lot of money doing that and got some cool shots and cool movement tracking shots you wouldn't get normally. We're able to get in and out of places that to film without big rigs with cranes and tracks. And it wasn't like American films or British films in that sense. It was a lot more on the move, a lot more street level. The way the giallos were shot and the horror movies of that era, and even some of the dramas, etc. So not everybody could be Fellini, had that kind of financial resource. Um, but for what they had, these people were great craftsmen. They were arguably far greater craftsmen than their American grindhouse contemporaries, in my opinion. And I think that's true of the Japanese exploitation films as well. I think they always look good. They always look good. The actors in Japanese genre films are always on point. I mean, everybody's professional. So if you stacked like your Last House on the Left and its derivatives and things of that nature, up against Italian and Japanese genre cinema of the 70s, it's going to really pale. Not that it wasn't great in its own way, it was. So anyway, we see what these four irresponsible film crew people have done in order to get the perfect shot. And basically, they torment this Amazonian cannibal tribe, and it's pretty horrific. And they kill animals. Like I said, they eat a turtle. They burn one of their villages. They rape one of their women. And then comes payback, and it's all captured on the 16 millimeter grainy film stock because we've got to get the last shot, so we're going to be famous like as we're being dismembered and devoured on camera. This has been so imitated, this film. Everything from Blair Witch Project to Wreck and in between has taken this exact kind of formula. And so this movie is really kind of legendary in modern horror, and with very good reason, because as good as some of those movies are, like I love Wreck, for instance, one and two, but Cannibal Holocaust is the king, it always will be the king, and got to give it its due. So I watch it every Halloween because it unnerves me, it terrifies me, it repulses me, it intrigues me. The mystery intrigues me every time I watch it, even though I know everything that's going to happen. because the way it's shot, it sucks you into the various levels of reality involved. Um, so I recommend this movie. Grindhouse Releasing did a really nice job on the Blu-ray. I used to have their deluxe DVD set, and they've essentially duplicated it, but even added even more extras and top-notch stuff. They've included the incredible soundtrack. This is my single favorite film soundtrack of all time. And there's a few that come very close, but this one, it unnerved me the first time I watched it. And it was part of the success of the film, creatively, artistically, is that Ortolani uses some very dark, menacing music, string sections, but then he also has a main theme played on an acoustic guitar with a synthesizer accompanying it. And that is so famous. And that beautiful, loving theme, which is alternately called Cannibal Holocaust theme or Love and Fun, is often run counter to the brutality on the screen. And to the Italians, this was not irony. Riz Ortolani did this in a lot of movies, the Mondo movies, and other directors have utilized this exact technique, this beautiful music, everyone from, Morricone to Goblin, and the beautiful music alongside jarring or shocking visuals. Here, it's always been considered ironic, and in the old days, maybe a bit in poor taste or incongruous. But no, it's not. You have to put yourself in that cultural mindset, and consequently, that's changing. That has changed in modern horror cinema as a result. It just took a number of years. Uh, so this is the Blu-ray. Shocking cover. I know. It says the most controversial movie ever made. Inside, we have a cover with some original art. That's our girl Faye, surrounded by the cannibals toward the end of the movie. She, like the three others of the film crew, uh, are pretty much the villains of the movie, albeit they are the protagonists of the um, found footage, which Monroe and Company dubs. Uh, they call that one the Green Inferno, and that inspired an actual film in the late '80s, sometimes called The Green Inferno, and also a movie just called The Green Inferno by Eli Roth in recent years, where he attempted to semi-resurrect the cannibal genre. I have not seen The Green Inferno, but I've seen the older one. It really doesn't. It's just kind of a bad knockoff, but of Cannibal Holocaust. I've not seen Roth's um, Green Inferno, and to be very honest, not to sound narrow-minded, I'm not really interested in seeing it at all. If someone places it right in front of me and I can see it for free, I'll try to sit through it. I'm not a big fan of his work, though he certainly has some strengths and great knowledge of cinema. Um, but yeah, and so inside you get like this enormous booklet with all kinds of essays about Cannibal Holocaust. You get a Blu-ray of only extras. So they took all the extras from the DVD thing and they plopped them on here and added a bunch of other extras. And this is exhaustive. The Blu-ray that's in my player right now is the movie itself. So, this is a little multi-tiered set with lots of goodies in it. So, I am reviewing the product as well as the work itself. So, sometimes I go off track and don't get into the Blu-ray itself. Next film I'm going to watch after this, and then I will probably, be nauseous the rest of the night, is Beyond the Darkness, also known as Boyo Omega, also known as Blue Holocaust, and also known as Buried Alive. And I first rented this film in 1992 under the name Buried Alive, and it was utterly gross. And but it had a real impact on me. It was probably the grossest film I'd seen up to that time, and it was one of the first Italian horror films I ever saw. I was becoming addicted to Argento and interested in some other contemporaries of his, and I just happened to see, well, hey, I've heard of this Joe D'Amato guy. He's one of these guys. I'm going to see what it's like, and I guess I was expecting something maybe more like Argento. I was expecting something really sleazy and grimy. But that led to the power of it. Again, it was one of those that was revolting to watch, but couldn't take your eyes off it. Um, it's just one thing after another. Basically, it's this cat whose wife, played by Cynthia Monreal, I think I'm saying her name right, who was Emily in The Beyond, the blind seer. Um, she dies, and he can't let go, so he's obsessed. This is partially inspired by a film called, I think it's called The Third Eye, with Franco Nero from the late 60s. I get it confused because he did the fifth chord in the 70s. I don't know if he did the fourth not ever or not, but um, here's some incredible music in Cannibal Holocaust now. Some of the more evil music, just dire, like you hear that and you know something horrific is going to happen. Just pure dread. So anyway, back to Beyond the Darkness. So it's early '80s. Joe D'Amato and Goblin, who I loved already, did the score, and it's very effective. It's more low key. It's more moody. It's got some melody to it, but it also is kind of creepy. It has a weird mood, and to me, it's inseparable from the visuals. Once again, so anyway, the our man who loses his wife also has kind of lost his mind, and he has her. He decides he's going to taxidermy her and keep her around looking the way she always did, and fetishizing her. I guess it's you're assuming he's probably going to attempt to have relations with her, so to speak. Um, and he's just very ruthless. He picks up a hitchhiker and tortures her, and they kill her and dissolve her in acid. I would say this is probably her on the what's left of her on the cover. It was a shame because she was a very, very voluptuous, good-looking woman, and not a model-looking woman, but it's a real woman. And you know, they stripped all her clothes off, and it was pretty wonderful until you know they did her in. Then it wasn't that great, but um, so here we go. What do I think of this movie? Yeah, I recommend it because if you want to see something extreme, go for it. It's among the most extreme of the Italian horror. It says here on the front, forbidden to anyone under 18. That's a bit of hyperbole, just like Animal Holocaust, banned in 31 countries. Where do they come up with these numbers exactly? It's so arbitrary. Um, so that's another fun one I'm going to be watching today as I celebrate. I'm off work at the day job, and I'm really starting to commit down to this Halloween countdown of films. So let's talk about the next theme, and we'll talk about tomorrow's films. I'll go ahead and preview these real quick here, or as quick as I'm capable of being. Mario Bava's Kill Baby Kill. Bava is to me the master of Italian horror and the master of Gothic horror. And this film is one of the greatest Gothic horror films ever made. One of Bava's best. It's just it's just the best of everything. And I watch it every Halloween too. It just has that mood, that kind of old dark house, haunted house kind of vibe, along with some supernatural and some eerie stuff going on in this village. And basically, there's this little girl who's haunting people that has like a little ball that she bounces, and she's there's my cat. She's a spirit, kind of evil, Um, and then our man Giacomo Rossi Stewart plays a doctor who's trying to unravel the mystery. Who is this girl and what's happened in the Villa Grops, which is the village of Grops, which is where all this takes place. And you've got this guy, the Burgermeister, he's kind of Kojak looking, and just eccentric characters. It's a period piece. I would say maybe it's supposed to be 19th century. Um, Wonderful, beautifully shot, eerie, just Bava at his very best. It's still not quite my favorite film by him. That would have to be Whipping the Body, followed by Planet of the Vampires, most likely, because they're even more beautiful to look at. Um, this is great, though. I was so happy that this came out on Blu-ray. Kino Classics did the whole Mario Bava catalog, and for years it took Bava's catalog to really come out as they were meant to be seen. A lot of these movies were popular in theaters, obviously in Italy, but in America as well at the time they came out in the 60s and 70s. But by the 90s, it's just like he was a cult kind of guy and not very well known with my generation. And so people like Tim Lucas, the video watchdog, began to fix that. He wrote the giant biography. All the Colors of the Dark, and he also did audio commentaries on the early DVD releases on VCI, and then Anchor Bay put out a box set with a couple of box sets with most of Bava's movies fully remastered on DVD. They've been working on putting that together for a long time. By the time it came out and the Jodorowsky box set around the same time, uh, Anchor Bay themselves weren't as big a going concern. They weren't really obsessed with focusing on all these cult movies like when they began. And part of that was because the men who spearheaded that effort, William Lustig and Jay Douglas, had defected, so to speak. They'd gone and made their own company, Blue Underground, and they held the rights to a lot of those movies and were releasing them on the Blue Underground imprint now. So uh, Lustig did not get a hold of Bava stuff, though, but apparently when the time came to negotiate with the North American Blu-ray rights, Kino snapped them up, and they did a great job. I've seen a few of them, and they're beautiful. They're definitive. This Blu-ray has other stuff, documentary, trailers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and of course Tim Lucas's commentary. That's a great Halloween movie. It just has that mood and that vibe. So the last one, so that, by the way, these two that I'm going to watch tomorrow, I call these the classics part one because there's going to be a part two. So these are ones that are kind of been around for ages and people know them and people in the genre know them. In some cases, the general public knows them, like when the next movie I'm going to talk about. To me, they're classics because I watch them every year without fail during the season. Second of these then is the Howling. This is the Shout Factory / Scream Factory edition. And I have to say, man, Shout Factory has done a wonderful job on their stuff. Here's some more stuff. The alternate cover, which is basically this graphic, this poster. That was the major graphic for years. But the new art, as Scream Factory has commissioned new art for all of these too. New art's really incredible too. This has 5 billion extras, and it's the best print I've seen in this movie. I've seen this movie countless times by now, I think. I used to watch it on TV every time it came on, and it was cut, but it wasn't as heavily cut as you might think. Just some profanity bleeped out and some of the bloodier shots, but pretty much intact. The film, they did that with films back then amazingly. They got away with a lot, even though the standards and practices were completely draconian compared to what we expect of television now. I mean, where you have shows like Cannibal on network TV, which is great. Cannibal's awesome. I don't know if anyone's unfamiliar with The Howling, but it's my personal favorite werewolf movie of all, and the design of the werewolves is my favorite. And my favorite single werewolf character, as far as his appearance, is this character named Eddie Quist, who's played by Robert Picardo, who did not really become famous until years later, playing the hologram Doctor on Star Trek Voyager. And I didn't even know it was the same gentleman when I started watching Voyager. But anyway, Dee Wallace Stone and her husband Christopher Stone, they play husband and wife in the film as well, and they kind of get involved with this kind of commune, self-help therapy commune, and that's as a result of a traumatic incident that happens when Dee's character, who is a TV reporter, she encounters this Eddie Quist guy in a peep show in this very strange scenario. And then something happens and she can't remember what it is. It's so traumatic and it's on the edge of her consciousness, like these things can be, and especially in films, but in reality too. And in the book The Howling, her character was raped, and that was the trauma, and she went to the commune and went to further therapy. And of course, this movie is a little different. Her trauma is not as overt, but it does have to do with a revelation of what Eddie is and what the people in the colony really are. There's hints and there's some weird things here and there, and then Dee's friend, I forgot her name, she comes to the colony to find them along with another coworker of theirs, and By the time they go, they're starting to think what these people in the colony really are, lycanthropes. And so good old Dick Miller plays his signature character, Walter Paisley, who's had numerous jobs over the years and even died 2 or 3 times, but somehow managed to resurrect. Um, Once again, he's hilarious, and he tells these two characters all about the werewolf lore and how to protect yourself and fight werewolves. And they don't, whether they believe it or not is irrelevant. They just know they have to do something, and just in case these are werewolves, they're going to use silver bullets. And of course, when they finally are confronted by werewolves, well, the poor young lady is confronted by Eddie, and then you have this amazing extended transformation sequence. And of course, it's a total suspension of disbelief. Kids today would probably be like, "Why doesn't she just run while he's standing there transforming for 5 minutes?" It's more like time is frozen, kind of. I mean, it really he probably really doesn't transform over 5 whole minutes, but they're stretching it out to show us every phase because there had never been a werewolf transformation of this nature on camera before. And Rob Bottin, who was kind of a young Turk, a wunderkind of special effects at that time, just came up with this amazing makeup and various effects to make it move, and pulsating like bladders under the skin. Bladders are like a thing they make to make things look like they're moving under the surface of like skin. And so that was amazing, jaw dropping. And then he looks incredible. And then unfortunately, she doesn't, yeah, she doesn't get away. But her buddy, though, manages to rout the werewolf somewhat because they don't expect that anyone's going to believe that they're werewolves. They're a bit cocky. And so the silver bullets, when they start flying, the werewolves start freaking out. And John Carradine plays an older werewolf who wants to kill himself because he thought humans were their cattle, and then they should not try to integrate with humans. And this colony thing is just, opening it to the public is a terrible idea. Whereas you have Patrick McNee, John Steed from the Avengers. He's a doctor, and he's kind of the semi-leader of the colony, and he's spearheading this effort to bring the werewolves into the 20th century to coexist, not to make humans so much their prey. I mean, obviously to convert some of them into werewolves themselves, which one of our major characters that, well, a couple of our major characters that happens to, but one not until the very end. The ending's really cool, and it's a very dramatic ending. And Dee Wallace Stone is just, I love her. She's incredible. She's like a scream queen icon, kind of wholesome one. She didn't do a lot of, or maybe no, overtly sexual stuff, or she did do some damsel in distress kind of roles, and then she did some strong woman roles, but she's always very human and vulnerable and identifiable. Obviously, she was in The Hills Have Eyes before this. She usually plays a mother to young children. She was the mother in E.T., which is, a horrible movie, but not a horror movie. In my opinion, it's a horrible movie. But anyway, she was good in that, and I think I'm going to turn this down a little while I wrap up because the tribes are losing their minds here on Cannibal Holocaust. So, if you haven't seen The Howling, you need to see it. It's pretty essential if you're a horror fan, especially if you're a werewolf fan. It's essential for Halloween. It's like an iconic werewolf film. I mean, there's a few others that are great that if you have time to watch them during Halloween, great. Or if you want to see them another time, cool. I mean, I would recommend things that are on Blu-ray. I would recommend Wolfen, American Werewolf in London, Dog Soldiers. Those are some notable ones that I think are all great modern ones. That they departed with the Howling on. The creatures became more wolf-like, even when they were bipedal. Whereas the Wolfman, looks more like a hairy guy with kind of a dog face. And that's not to slag the Wolfman and Lon Chaney Jr. It's just that's how it is, and that had its place. And actually, some people who geeks who do creative mythography of these kind of things have even named the various stages of the werewolves. You know, I can't remember what they are, but like each stage has a name, I think derived from a Latin word. And you know, one stage is like your Larry Talbot guy who is fully humanoid, and then all the way to when you totally turn into a wolf, like an American Werewolf in London. And then, of course, in between, right in the middle of all that, is our boy Eddie from Howling and his friends in the colony. So this is a great Halloween movie. And thanks for listening. I'm going to wrap up. I'm going a little over my 30 minutes I wanted to do, but that's 4 whole films. So I'm really looking forward to seeing Kill Baby Kill and The Howling tomorrow, and seeing if I can make it through Beyond the Darkness to dinner time. I might have to, well, if I do it after dinner, it might be even worse. But we'll see. We'll see. Thanks a lot for listening, and I'll be back in a couple of days with 4 more movies to get us closer to the countdown towards our favorite holiday. Thanks. Take care.